Squatch Senior here. Got the M in the shop, ready to start tearing down. Give it a pressure wash job the other day. Kind of takes a lot of the grease and stuff off. Don't get it all. You're still going to be parts messy and stuff. But got the sheet metal off. Ready to start tearing separate components off. You can see I already got started. I've got part of the pump fittings taken out, the pressure line and stuff. I got the distributor all loose, ready to pull. Going to take the alternator next. Power steering unit, that'll come off as a total unit. Got the fluids all drained already, so kind of shouldn't take too long to get some individual parts off here. A lot of little issues with this thing. Some of the previous owners got a little piece in here and some of the hydraulic controls have been welded on. I'm assuming they wrecked the seal. It's been leaking oil on me. I've been through a few of the components here already. It's got a Charlene power steering unit in it. You overhauled that unit last summer. I did some rewiring on it in the past. It's had a lot of oil leaks in the front. We're going to see if we can address them along with the engine overhaul. Radiator come off. Looking at, I'm not sure how I'm going to split it, if I'm going to split the engine and front axle and slide it apart first or just start taking components off. That'll be kind of, I'll get that done as I run into them. Front axle needs some work. I'm getting loose spindles, stuff like that in her. So we get that done at the same time. This side got pretty much the whole unit. I got the fluids drained. You can see the reservoir for the power steering. Got to get that sealed back up again. I'm going to take that off as a complete unit and leave that all together for the time being. Shouldn't really need any work done in that because I have been through the pump and the gear motor both on that. So carburetor will come off separate from the manifold. I don't like to tip them around too much, or I do have a kit for that. I probably will be overhauling that too. So anyway, we're in the process, just starting to rip pieces off, start getting her down to bare engine block here if possible. Starter, I did go through that. That was another project from last summer. This had been converted to 12-volt system. Still had the 6-volt starter in, so every time that engaged on the Bendix, it would just hammer. It finally hammered the Bendix out. So I did have some separate 12-volt systems here that I went through and got the right Bendix for it and converted the starter also to 12-volt, and that's been working excellent lately. So anyway, here we go. We're going to start ripping stuff apart. Okay, we'll be getting the distributor unit out of the way. Plug wires disconnected. I do have the coil wire, the positive to the coil disconnected already. Some oil leaking out from between. I'm assuming I've been getting some oil in the distributor also. I'm thinking I got probably a little bit of a hydraulic seal leak there. She is pretty oily inside. As you can see, you can get a pretty good puddle of oil on the floor down here. It's next to the distributor. Come out between the distributor and pump. Quite a puddle left inside there too, so I'm pretty sure that seal is leaking. That'll have to be addressed in that. Next I'll be getting into this control valve right here. Got to get that out of the way. I need to get this suction hose out, which I'll probably be replacing too. So next order of business is get the control valve and this suction hose off. I'll make sure I get all these fittings on the pump capped off and stuff to keep all kinds of dirt and stuff out. You don't want that happening. So didn't quite come off the way I wanted it to. This should have come apart right here off this nipple. Nipple did come off the control unit, but easy enough to be addressed in the future. Next order of business, we'll get this alternator out of the way. This thing had been converted from a generator to an alternator. I'm not a real fan of alternators on these. I like original, but we'll probably be sticking with this just to get this thing back in operation again. Next, we'll be taking the power steering unit off. There is a collar, stop collar, that goes up next to the steering wheel out there. You got to take that loose because you'll be taking this pinch bolt loose here, and you'll have to slide that column back for clearance in here. From there, we'll go through. You can see I got, there's drift pins, safety wired in all the pins. Make sure if you ever put it back together, you get them safety wires put on there. Kind of a bad situation if you lose your steering going down the road. From there, we'll come up here to the front. You got to take this plug out here, and then you just screw everything off on the worm. That brings a shaft up there out of the way for clearance. And from there, I will be taking the gear motor along with the reservoir, which I already drained, and the pump. That'll be coming off as one unit. Okay, power steering assembly ready to come out. Next project, we're going to pull the air cleaner off. A little trick I got on these band clamps is I'll usually back the clamping bolt off. So get a lot of clearance in there, and I'll take a socket that fits over and just tap the clamp in. That'll loosen them up for you. Got the top one done already. Usually these don't stick too bad. Pull it off the bottom and pull it off the air cleaner. And then I got the clamps loose on the air cleaner, so that's going to be pretty straightforward. When I do the next time, I'm going to put these screws in this way. Right now, I don't know if this has been off before, but it's awful hard to get a screwdriver on them. So next time they're going the other way. Next thing to come off is throttle linkages. Got all the cotter pins and flat washers out, so it's a matter of taking everything apart. Got a loose down in the governor down here. You got one, and hope we got clearance to take it all apart. There we go. Comes with a bang. Kind of nice just to get this stuff out of your way. Makes things life easier. Next comes the carburetor. I took the two screws off a tube that comes from the governor. Got the cotter pin out of the choke rod. And just let that hang for now. Then we'll finish taking the nuts off to hold the carburetor to the manifold. That's it. Okay, I've got the thermostat housing bolts loose, all the clamps loose and stuff. A lot of times what I'll do, I'll just take and tap these, loosen them up. Looks like we're coming apart pretty easy this time. Sometimes they can be really stuck. And see, we do have a thermostat in her. That will be replaced too, just to make sure. Who knows how old it is. Manifold's ready to take off. Got lucky, at least 3 nuts come off. Otherwise, 3 of the studs with the nuts on come off, which is no big deal. That's easy fix. So here we go. Okay, getting water temp sanding unit out. I run into an issue here. I did get the nut loose. As you can see, it'll come out, but it looks like they used the old-time Permatex in there and gooped that thing in there. So instead of right now destroying it, I decided to just take the whole gauge panel loose and just unscrew it from the block for now and get it on the bench where it's a little easier to work on. Well guys, we're gonna call this a day. Got some rain coming in here and stuff. So what I need to do next on this thing is we're looking at getting the radiator off, which has proven to be quite a problem here. What there is on the bottom, there's two studs that come out into the bolster, and you can see it does wiggle, but it's spring loaded. So what we got to do is get underneath. There's usually a nut in there with a cotter pin through that tensions the spring. But our problem is this wide front end. As you can see, all this angle iron and everything else that's underneath here is in my way to get in there. So this front end is going to have to come off. And to get that front end off is going to probably take that Kubota tractor down there to help me lift this thing out of the way. And seeing how it's raining, looks like that's as far as I'm going this afternoon. I'll kind of get underneath, show you what I'm up to under there. You might not be able to see it on the film, but it's hard to see it just by myself. So bear with me. I'll get underneath there and we'll continue a little bit farther. Okay, here's what I'm dealing with. I've got this whole wide front axle assembly is bolted to the bolster. Back to the side rails, you can see on both sides, so that whole unit's going to have to come out of there. And way up, I don't know if you can see it, it's really hard to see, way up in there, the light is kind of shining on it, it looks like a cap in there. I'm pretty sure what's going to happen is that cap's got to be popped out of there. It's probably a spring loaded to access the nut and cotter pin and stuff. So that's going to be probably the next operation, and like I say, to get this front axle out, I'm going to have to get the tractor up here with the forks on that Kubota. So anyway, that Kubota's really got me out of a bind with this M so far. It's been an excellent purchase, and it's done everything that we've needed it to do so far. Anyway, I think this is going to be a pretty colorful, languaged operation here, so probably won't get into a lot of detail until I get everything loose. We do have some younger viewers here that kind of watch this channel that don't need to hear that kind of stuff. I know two in particular from southeast Minnesota that, according to their dad, they get enough ideas. They don't need anybody giving them ideas in the past anymore. So anyway, that's it for today. We're going to sign off.